way it's supposed to be done. Can somebody say amen? And guess who's with me now? All the way from somewhere on this great green planet. Or is it a blue planet? I'm still wondering. It's Mike from around the world. Mike, how you doing tonight?
God bless you, Pastor Paul. I finally made it. A minute late, 2 minutes, 3, something like that.
We've got some grace for you. We've got grace. If it gets over 7, we're going to get nervous. But you're here. Okay. All right, Mike. Great to have you on tonight. We're very blessed to have you, and it's a privilege and an honor. Let me just say to you now, you 2 weeks ago told us, you said, you know what? There's going to be a mid-January, there's going to be a super blizzard that's going to hit the United States. So just kind of keep your eyes open. Well, Mike, there's a super blizzard. They just named it Izzy. The Weather Channel said it's going to affect multiple hundreds of millions of people. It's this weekend, mid-January, January 15th and 16th. And I've shared some earlier in the broadcast. It is a ton of snow, a ton of ice, freezing rain and sleet, and it covers a huge swath of this planet. I want to ask you, is this the super blizzard that you were talking about?
Well, it's just like one, Pastor Paul, and I'll tell you what, it's a good gauge. People should, because this is an example of what happens when, these high-pressure systems begin to form. And they start to coalesce with these low pressure systems. You have just this scenario, and the weather people are having a hard time trying to find a name for some of this phenomena. And it's about to get worse because remember, in the summertime, this summer coming up is going to be the worst of the worst. That's when I expect storms to span the totality of the U.S. One storm would span the totality of the U.S. And you can quote this on the Weather Channel or any meteorologist out there. They're going to say, well, this is not one big storm. This is a combination of 3 or 4 storms. It's not one big one. They're going to have to emphasize that because people are going to start noticing these giant high pressure systems, which is unnatural. We have one right now. It formed in Canada. It was sucking down super cold Arctic temperatures, spreading them all over the place. And so it resulted in this storm. We have a couple of low pressure systems driving this storm. When it's picking up tons of moisture, you have air coming in from space. And then, of course, the moisture in the earth. And it's strange, too, Pastor Paul. This storm is causing people's skin problems. I wonder if people have noticed that their skin is a bit drier than normal, not simply from heat, but we're talking about chapped skin. The process is already beginning, right? And that's with ample humidity.
So are you saying, well, if it's affecting the skin, is it because it's sucking the humidity up into the air? Or...
Yeah, it's taking it from everywhere. Just imagine a time, though, Pastor Paul, when it's about 120 degrees with 10% humidity. Now imagine that. That would be devastating. That would be very devastating.
Your lips would crack. Your mouth.
So would your fingertips. When it's at 10% and the temperature's over 80 degrees, your fingertips will crack in half, right? Okay. Without moisture. So people are going to have to find personal solutions to this. And of course, we're having a severe water shortage that's beginning to surface. So humidifiers and things like that may be, out. That may be out. But this weather phenomena is happening, and they just reported this morning. Well, they didn't report it, so this is early, but the Earth had a noticeable tilt. And if they were trying to confirm it, and it's in fact confirmed, the Earth has moved in the last 3 days, or our tilt is changing. Something is really tugging at the Earth in a very big way, a very significant way, a very noticeable way. And it's only a matter of weeks before everybody begins to, they're going to wonder, because eventually we're going to look up at the heavens and see the constellations in the wrong place. That's how it's going to tilt. And this process has begun. I would say as of today, this process has begun in a noticeable way.
Now, is that going to affect the northern, is this Isaiah 24 when it says the earth is going to flip upside down? Is that what's happening? We're having a pole shift? or tilt? What do you mean?
The entire Earth is changing its position. Keep in mind, we have some very large external influences out there, right? They're tugging at the sun. Jupiter has had a concentration of storms on one side. That's unheard of, right? It's unheard of. Saturn, the geometrical pattern at the pole of Saturn has also shifted in the direction of the storms. Jupiter has been forming on one side. So something on one side of us, the opposite side of us, is pulling pretty hard down. And as we continue to go through the days, it will significantly change all weather patterns. So nobody should be surprised. Really about this storm is a bit different in that it's going to be you could call it a gateway to many more things that will begin to expose the true state of our land here. But, these devastations are going to multiply. They're going to increase. They're going to, more and more frequently, we're going to entertain storms like this. They didn't see this coming because they rely upon spaghetti models, both from America and, of course, in Europe. And you can't do that with the storms that are happening today. It's not going to give you some accurate reading. There's the vision that men naturally have. It's almost lost these days. They can't see. They're blind unless they have a computer system. Unfortunately, computers can't computate based on information they're missing. They didn't know about the tilt that just happened today. It was a shift today. They didn't know about the tug that sent a strong gravitational pullout, you could say, with some because they had to alter satellite patterns. They altered too. They did course corrections last night. They were doing course corrections.
Wait a minute. It happened today. You say a powerful shift has affected the Earth. It's a planet tilt. Mike, was it a gravitational pull?
It's still pulling. And it's going to mess with people's minds. There's a correlation with the Earth and humanity in their minds. Just like we're disturbed by what we see, we can also get emotionally compromised. We're going to have a big problem when our minds drift on us, right? Some of the phenomena that was experienced back in the past, that'll happen again today. And that's going to be a real problem, Pascal. Can you imagine standing up? You're just going through the course of your day, and all of a sudden, it feels like you're in a dream. Or you just stop, and your consciousness begins to kind of just float away from you. It comes back. But this is what happens under large, or let's just say alterations in the magnetic field. How do they know this? Because they have done studies on this. They put people underground in controlled environments, and they have induced magnetic fields, and they have cut out or filtered out the Schumann resonance, and they have done just about everything to people underground. They didn't know they were part of this, right? They didn't actually know what was happening. Upon a change in the magnetic field, aggression goes up about 90%. People throw caution to the wind. They begin to do wild things, right? They will begin to kill each other and go to the extreme. And so this is happening in real time with our magnetosphere.
Is this the effects of Planet X?
Yeah, we certainly have a perturber that's affecting our entire solar system here. It's not just Earth. You're talking about on every single planet and beyond. So we have that signifies a very large perturber. Something of large force, almost incalculable force. And again, at the speed that thing is traveling, once we see it, it'll be too late. This is why it sometimes keeps me up, because I know that people, if they don't see it, they won't prepare for it, right? Kind of like this storm. Yeah. Just like this storm. And if this storm can serve as an example of something, nobody really looked at this storm last week because they didn't see it, because the conditions were not set for this storm. But here it is, right? Who could prepare for that? And I guarantee you, if this storm increases, because if it shifts, if the wind speeds pick up with this high pressure system and it begins to drift, you can almost, you're going to have to add a factor to whatever moisture this thing is going to pull out of the atmosphere and dump right on the surface of the Earth. We could see some major flooding events out of this. We're certainly going to have, and that's power outages. They're primed with the grid right now. The grid is primed. They have additional network operators standing by right now to cut power to many different places. And the idea behind this is if you can isolate disruptions in the power, you won't, it'll never get back to the power stations. Thus, they save money on these giant main breakers by cutting people's power off. Now, if it snows 15, 16 inches near hubs, they can't get to the people. Plus, we have a problem because our nuclear facilities are lined up almost in a straight line. And these storms are going to begin to expose some things of these nuclear facilities.
So, okay, we put nuclear facilities on fault lines, and we put nuclear facilities on straight lines. And both things it's like standing in the middle of the interstate waiting on incoming traffic. It's like, it's not a smart thing to do. What was did we have stinking thinking at the time? Did we not understand? Did we ignore what we know now about this incoming binary system?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Also, due to the Earth being under these strong forces, it has exposed even more fault lines. For example, on the East Coast, I believe we have, the count is 11 fault lines on the East Coast right now. These are fault lines they didn't previously know about because they're too deep. They did no excavation in these places. On the West Coast, you have more than the Marianas Trench and all these places that you're dealing with. You have 7 other fault lines. One of them is a very deep fault line, but it's a severe fracture point. It goes up right up through Nevada all the way up to Canada. And believe it or not, this could fracture the U.S. as a whole. Right? This could really disturb the U.S. And it was previously unknown all this time. And it was only exposed by that volcanic eruption that was overseas when it caused the vibrations in the earth, and they could actually see it and pick it up, and then they verified it. So they're learning new things about what's underneath the earth, and they're finding out we may have put some delicate facilities in places where they should not be. Right?
Folks, Mike from around the world's with us today, and obviously tonight he's broke some big news for us today, that there has been a powerful shift today that has affected the earth. He's calling it's a planet tilt, and the effects of it is, of course, a mighty gravitational pull, or a tug has happened today and will continue to happen. This is not going to get less, it's going to get increased. It's going to create all kinds of catastrophic events and extreme weather conditions. And it sounds like Mike even says that this Planet X, or binary system, a lot of times he refers it to, is a large force that will mess with the people's minds, driving them crazy. And I think that we're going to see that. The Bible tells us that men's hearts will fail them for fear. You know, they'll go insane over what's coming. You know, in that movie that just came out, Mike, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence and several others, called Don't Look Up. It's about an incoming asteroid. It's going to destroy the world. So they laugh it off. Let's all just keep going. Don't look up. Maybe it'll go away. But Jesus said when these things are happening, people are going to be dying of heart attacks and fear. Minds are going to they'll be losing their minds because they don't have any peace. But he told the church, look up. Not don't. He said, look up, lift up your head. Your redemption draws nigh. Are you saying to us that despite the catastrophic, cataclysmic events that are apocalyptic events that are coming, that we shouldn't walk in fear, but walk in faith? Are you saying we should just keep going?
Oh, yeah. Fear is destructive, Pastor Paul. Fear is very destructive, and it's also unwarranted. Right? All a person has to do is look back in their lives and count how many times they were afraid and frightened of a situation with the butterflies and the turned over stomach, and they were terrified to open up a piece of mail, but nothing ever took place. And God doesn't show up at the beginning. He doesn't show up in the middle. He shows up at the very end. And it's almost like a message he tells us all the time. Right? He shows up at the end to let us know you don't have to worry in the first place. No matter what it looks like, no matter what you think, you don't have to worry. But everybody should keep in mind that's for the serious folks who really abide in Christ, right? Those who are born again. Because we're getting to this point now, Pastor Paul, where, any self-defense a person thought they would have, all these plans people had, I can tell you right now, they're not going to work. They just won't work. The average person, well, and some privileged people, they have no idea. They have no idea. You know, there were some, last week, there were some folks who were upset with the intelligence community, right? The intelligence community has an excuse to lie, right? They're licensed to lie. And they were upset about their cell phones. Well, all cell phones have a back door. You can protest the cell phone companies all day long. It's just not going to work. They have something called, they have a Thor basis for every single phone, which means they can look into everything that you do all the time. Every single piece of data you've ever had is exposed. They can tap it and listen, do what they want to do. And nobody can stop them from doing that. And they know more than what people think they know. And by and large, with some of the stuff that happens in the world, we got to be careful because people feed into the hands of counterintelligence operatives who set up these things. So people respond the way they want them to, right? Like the beginning of the year. Remember after COVID-19, I said that people are going to begin to die again. You remember that?
Yes, you did.
And here we have a phenomenon, two phenomena happening right now. We not only did COVID-19 change just about everybody, and it caused people to strangle each other in some way, form, or fashion, but we also have an uptick in what's called these people who are interested in hunting spirits and all this stuff. And it just so happens, Fastball, that the people interested in hunting spirits are from the ages of 19 to 43. Isn't that funny? And so they're like wide open to death itself.
All right.
These people.
Go ahead, Mike.
These people are totally, they're totally under assault, and they don't know it because they can't discern that they're under assault. That they've been given it's almost like a drug they've been given, and now they can't stop. They're addicted to it, but they open up their families to it. Their children are beginning to suffer by it. And this generation that's, coming up right now, we have some serious things happening that every single Christian who believes in Christ and who studies, who reads the Bible, who is interested in Christ, they should know these things. But all of us are troubled in our spirits. We often try to put our finger on it to say it's this or that and the other. Well, the truth is, there is a spiritual disturbance among those who are standing in darkness because that number seems to be increasing, and it's all around us. If we're not careful, we'll step into it also. But we have real events of death. There are real consequences to what's happening right now. And it almost seems like the grace of God has been lifted in several areas. And that's a wake-up call of wake-up calls, right?
Yes, definitely.
Because to our Father, there is no death to our Father. There's only justice. We see death, and it saddens us, but the Father sees truth, and there is no death. There's only a person transitioning from this world to an eternal realm. That's when they're born, I call it. They're born dead or alive, right? I certainly don't want to be born dead, but there seems to be a lot of people who have, they're just outright boldly saying no to Christ.
Amen.
And hunting these spirits and things past Paul, but we're seeing an overlap, especially with death. And with all these changes in the earth, which are intimately tied to the human body, all those people who cannot overcome their flesh, they're going to be prone to everything of the flesh. And the only way to overcome that I know of is Christ. That's the only way. And it's somebody asked me the other day, how do you do it? I said, I'm not doing anything. It's Christ in me as I seek to abide in him. That's all it is. Yeah, because I'm not doing a thing.
Mike, while we're talking about these things affecting the earth, affecting people's minds, and everything, these empty shelves.
Don't go out.
Don't go out. You there?
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
These empty shelves that you told us over 2 years ago, you told us this was coming about 6 to 8 months before it actually happened, maybe almost a year before it actually happened. You said, oh, by the way, Paul, you might want to get used to eating spam, and you might want to get used to empty shelves. A lot of your favorite brands are just going to go away. Mike, this was a year before the pandemic. How in the world? So God, either tell us, is there some kind of plan out? Is this a manufactured famine is what I'm trying to say. Is this a manufactured famine?
Today, right now, people are going through a governmental transition they cannot see. It's unfortunate, but they cannot see it. What people understand as government, that's not what's in operation. That's just not that. You know what? That's going to have to be released for those who can't quite understand that in a very careful way. But what they perceive in government is not a reality. It is not a reality. The reality is behind the curtain, behind those individuals that are reading scripts. Because if you notice, everybody right now who gets in front of the camera, they are reading something. They're also being talked to while they're talking, because they stop abruptly, change the subject, go somewhere else, which means there's a director involved. Now, that director, they can have a teleprompter, but I can assure you that there's somebody on the other end saying, no, 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 no. And it's being, they're being redirected on the fly. Anyway, the presentation that we see is not what it is. And a part of me is glad, the other part is kind of heartbroken. Here's why. Because I know a lot of people, just like me, I was raised in America, and you believe in this system of democracy, this republic. And so you have hope for this republic, this house. I call America a house. I'm very blessed to be in this house. But unfortunately, as we grow, we learn more and more. And as we're exposed, we see that evil has been plotting all this time. So you have a lot of, they're moving the country from a stable area of complaints, of whatever the case is, into a brand new area. So things are going to look very confusing. They won't make sense. Why? Because they're going to push everybody into this one area. And they will eventually have everybody in a very specific place very soon. And it will coincide with global conflict, because that's on the rise too. We will have global conflict. In fact, we'll probably have a long durational time of global conflict. And in my opinion, the war started back in 2015. And it was started in a very strange way, but nevertheless, it began. It's not ended yet. It's just expanding, and it's consuming everything it expands on. When it comes to America, though, they have to do something with the populace of every single nation. Take China, for example. China is seizing its people. But the truth behind that is this. Prior to them shutting down these cities,
right,
people were going missing, right? They were going missing. They were going to re-education camps, of which one gentleman came out and spoke and said, no one is ever released from these camps, right? You're either a communist, a severe loyalist, or you're not. And everybody up there is an enemy, and they have to watch what they're doing. So what they did was they take anybody who would ever show signs of rebellion against the government, right? And they send out agents to cause them to protest what the government is doing. And when they do this, they say, hey, we're locking you in. They tell the world it's COVID-19. The people, they understand what's going on. To save face for the country, they won't say a word. That won't last too long. There's also been hive movements between China and North Korea at the same time. So we have countries that are actually maneuvering. We have an emboldenment in the Middle East that no one has ever seen before. And Russia is certainly, they seem to be spearheading this next rival conflict that's really beginning to build. And I mean, it's coming. He's not giving up. It's coming.
Well, let's talk a little bit. Now, I had a dream this past week, Mike, since you and I were on the air last Thursday. I'm not going to share the dream here completely because I don't look. It's a tough forum we're in trying to disclose things, but I did tell the dream. It's over at Patreon, and I interviewed Agent X, which was a very good, former NSA agent, 32 years, able to give me some very good insight on what I saw in the dream and heard. But I do want to bring a part up to you about it that's still puzzling me, and I wonder about it. A lot of the stuff that I saw in this dream, Mike, was dead on, like new uniforms for the soldiers and new technology of weapons, and also where there would be wars and conflicts that were going to take place. The main two, and Russia was involved in both, okay? But here's a map, Mike. If you look at your screen, this is it's a quick drawing on the fly after I woke up in the morning. This flag was on the wall in a room where I was at in my dream. I was in a room where there were Pentagon and top military brass. There were diplomats. There was ambassadors. there was White House staff, and I was just walking around with a clipboard and a camera. They didn't know, nobody even paid attention to me. They just figured I must work there or something. And I was listening to the conversations about the potential wars and battles and weaponry that may be used. They kept saying that Russia had certain weapons that never broke out before that were absolutely horrific. And when they told these, and then our guys would say to the president, well, then, we need to bring out ours. And when he would say this thing, women wept, and people's faces turned like they lost blood in their face. Sharing all this to say this. I have on the screen a map. This is the flag of the United States. All 50 stars were there, and it was in blue. And there was 13 stripes like our flag. Yet there were 3 stripes on there there was a blue stripe, a green stripe, and a yellow stripe. I don't have any color or crayons where I put them on there. And also, I don't know if that, if the blue, I felt the blue meant some kind of police, something to do with the police or law enforcement. The green, I believe, had to do with the environment or the green deal that's going. The yellow I didn't know, and I thought maybe you would know. And then the map was carved up. This is the flag, but the flag was also a map. And it was split into 4 sections. The Northeast being over here. I mean, that's the Northwest. That's the Pacific, the Pacific. Over here, the Northeast, extreme Northeast, but it went all the way down into almost, Utah-like and across to Maine. You had the Southwest down there, but the Southwest would go also all the way up there into Colorado and places. And then you had this huge section of what was like a Southeast, but really covered a lot of the Midwest as well, including Indiana was right here on this line. This was sort of like the Mississippi River running also. So the country was divided into 4 in this weird looking carved up, and they kept talking about sectors. So I guess my question, and I'll be quiet now, have you ever seen, is there anything out there like contingency plans, or is there post contingency plans of dividing this nation into 4 sectors? Or is there some other type of plans going on secretly behind the doors that we don't know about? Does this mean anything to you, or should I wad it up and throw it in the trash?
No, I would keep it for 2 reasons. People who know me at COT, they should be familiar with that.
What?
As far as the sectors are concerned, because I couldn't yell it loud enough, right? That the U.S., now this is proposed. The U.S. will be broken up into 5 regions. 5 regions. And what's so striking about that map is those look like 4 quadrants within a K, is what it looks like, right?
Oh.
And in the consistency of your colors, you were talking about the colors in that map, right? Because it looks like a big K on that map.
Yeah, I just now see
and
that.
Of course, K is a representative in I'll call them big books of acceptance or acknowledgement, right? Which means it's approved, right? That's what it means. It's approved. That's what K means in the big book. Those 5 sectors are necessary. That's already been proposed. It's going to happen. It will most certainly take place, which is why people's plans are going to be out the window. But now let me take it further. If America is divided into 5 sectors, they're going to reorder some things, right? And thus, I see your colors. You said you feel like blue stands for law enforcement. There's, in fact, there is a flag. There are 2 versions, 3 or 4 versions of a flag where blue is representative of law enforcement, right? It's a blue, black, and white flag, and they actually have one that's mounted that is a standard flag with a blue line in it, right? You said also it has green. Now, I find that funny because the 5 sectors, that'll be under the charge of the U.S. military and UN forces. right?
Right.
Now, did you know that the military is going back to the World War II green color?
No.
Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
They're going back to it, the World War II green color.
Why would you do that? Does that mean we're exiting the Middle East more, or geographical reasons?
You know, our mission is changing. We're not going to be operating in certain places, and most of the Northcom is going to become the new headquarters for what the military has to do. But here we come with the yellow, because yellow is very striking. I'm going to ask you something. Is that yellow or gold? Because often yellow represents gold. And if that's gold, when you're dealing with America divided with a flag behind it, right?
Yeah.
Gold is representative of achievement and honor, which means wherever you see gold, they're very proud of what they have accomplished, right?
Ah.
Very proud. And let me ask you this one question. Did you see black in that flag?
Yeah. You see the K? That was the black. Mm-hmm. It was
okay.
That the K, all the area, the lines of the K was black.
Those are colors of completion, because black means jurisprudence, which means theory or philosophy of law and knowledge. So it's almost like a declaration that you see right there, something that will not fail, right? It's when you look at military awards, right? You see those colors in there for a reason. When you look at the military colors, when you see uniform designs and all these different things, you're looking at meaning. All these things take meaning. Now, those sectors are proposed. They're proposed, and it will happen, right? That's not going to fail. They're going to do it. They've already begun. And it was always, listen, back in 2010, I had an open discussion. And I said, I just mentioned just a tad bit of it because I wasn't comfortable doing so. And it was to begin politically, right? Politically, they would start the divides. Then each individual state would divide. Those states would begin to group together. Do you know what's happening right now? They're grouping together.
Okay.
And they're about to go against the government and recant certain things. Many laws are about to change. But why are they doing this? It's not only in America, Pascal. We have the same thing happening in other countries. Because, again, they're preparing for someone who's already in charge. I'm going to be bold. There's somebody in charge who has control of all the assets on the earth right now. And he is referenced as such, and no one will disobey him. No one will disobey him. And everything they have declared concerning this individual has taken place, and they will not defy him. They won't defy him. So evidently there's something or someone in operation right now, and they have to make things ready for him, right? I've heard that too many times. I've heard that come out of England's leadership, their mouth, the U.S., people's mouths in the U.S. I've heard this in Germany. I've heard this all over the place. They have to prepare for him. They have no choice. They have to do it. They're doing everything to please this individual, this unnamed individual, I say. But evidently, something extraordinary is taking place, and they're not stalling. In other words, sometimes they have plans, goofy plans like this, and they stall, and things go back to normal. Things are not going back to normal. When people start to starve, right, for no good reason, we have a problem. When the water is missing, right, and we could have fixed that problem. There's something is happening. When transportation is about to take a giant hit, transportation will, then we better take things seriously. This coinciding with all the geological changes that we're having and all the spatial incursions that we're about to witness and see. We're in the middle of something, and something is escalating fast.
When you say transportation is about to take a major change,
a major hit.
Is that because individual? We're talking trains, planes,
everything is going to take a major hit. Transportation will take a major hit. Listen, and when you're talking about sectors, that means people are going to be relocated within the U.S. into different places based upon based upon what they choose loyalty with. They're going to be forced to choose to be loyal to one thing or the other. There is no in between, and people are going to be shifted around. It's just not going to be normal. Now, it's not going to be as awful in the beginning as people think, because they're going to notice that outside of the U.S. will be true horrors, right? We'll still be blessed. Of all these nations, we're going to be the most blessed. But nevertheless, things are going to change, and change fast. They're going to change fast. I strongly believe that's why many of the elder folks, God did not decree them to be in that time. It would be, they worked hard enough, and he spared them from that.
Sort of like
because
Josiah,
what's coming is
like he did for Josiah. He said, okay.
Oh,
now,
yeah. Yep. So I believe they went home prior to this time happening. They did their job, and I'm telling you now that these things are spreading now. And the Pastor Paul, we have an unfolding this week. You know, this storm's not going to slow down some of the unfoldings that are taking place. But you mentioned technology. We have the introduction of the force introduction of new technologies that are coming out just about every single day. Militarily, there are orders that have to be fulfilled, even for the USA. Our equipment, the military's equipment, is going to change fast. It's going to change fast because they're pulling out. They're fitting some of the larger vehicles with special devices. Aircraft are going to be fitted with special devices. People are starting to learn about some of the craft that we have that will blow your mind, and things that man has been able to do for years that they never shared, and it changes everything. With the introduction of AI, that's the only control mechanism they'll ever have to be able to complete their plans and keep us occupied at the same time. But it's reached a point where pretty soon nothing will be hidden. Nothing will. It'll be all out in the open, and no one's going to care. No one will care. That's how pressured things will seem to be. But I have to say this: they're going to seem to be that way.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you look at these situations by the eye, you can scare yourself to pieces, right? But as far as things touching a person, God has already decreed something else for us. He already decreed something else. And in fact, the other day, Pastor Paul was reading something, and God basically decreed that everybody goes through tribulation. But he said with his own, he said, ye shall have tribulation in the earth, but I've overcome the world. And what that means is either in the beginning or the end, we're going to have tribulation. It's a blessing that all the Christians that are called to him did not live perfect lives. Right? They went through things. Things happened to them. They had to struggle. They had to push. They had to get up. They had to keep going. They've been hit. They've been beat down. They went through all this early. And Jesus said, if blessed are those who cry now, they're going to laugh later. Which means if you're going through tribulation now, you will not go it. You're not going to go through tribulation in the end. But if you're laughing now,
you'll cry.
If you're laughing now, then you can't give a qualified answer for Christ. When we go through something, right? When we've been stripped over and over again, when things are up and down all the time, we can give a qualified answer if we're going to believe in Christ or not. That's a qualified answer because we consider much. But people who have gone through nothing, they cannot give a qualified answer, right? They can't do it. So when the rest of the food goes out, you see those white cartons on the shelf.
White cartons, white trains. You talked about this last week. We'll get to that, Mike. Also, these water war you mentioned earlier in the program, you know, Nebraska now is just taking on Colorado. The Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts announced this week a $500 million plan to divert the water out of Colorado to Nebraska. This is not a negotiated deal. He's just going to go do it. How's that going to work? What's going on here with the shortages of water?
It's not going to work out too well. We have a lot of states right now that are, like I said before, you have certain states, Pastor Paul, that are teaming up. They will fight over resources. Now, here's the unfortunate thing. After all of what they're going to do this summer, the floods are going to start in the arid regions, right? And some of the temperate regions, they're going to be dry as a bone. So things will reverse. Things are going to start reversing. is going to become quite confusing, but very difficult as far as the infrastructure is concerned. You'll see more and more states team up with other states to establish what they believe they should do. And that's what we're seeing more and more. And if nobody understands it, it is simply said like this. The federal government is losing power. The only way they're going to keep that power is militarily. That point is coming up very soon because people are not listening to the military. They're not listening to the U.S. government anymore. States are not listening to them. No. They're defying them. And the only way they're going to keep power is by the military.
It's not just the United States either, Mike. I mean, look what's going on in Europe. Look at Australia. Look at the pushback. Mm-hmm. People are saying, wait a minute, we're not listening no more. We're not taking this no more. So do you see a rebellion, a raising up? Worldwide now I'm talking.
Absolutely. And you know what's so strange, Pascal? In 100, well, I believe it's 142 civilizations prophesied the exact same thing. You know what they said? They said that the people would rebel against their governments. Now, they were telling what happened prior to the destroyer. The destroyer brings an influence with it because it's not just some rock that's coming past, right? We think that initially because it's too hard to cover the rest of the things that go with it. Some things are still out of bounds because we have no example yet, but those examples are coming. But in all those civilizations, they said the same thing. They had the same processes. Everything we're going through right now, they already prophesied would happen prior to the coming of the destroyer. And I'll, you know, from what I know, I'll boldly make a statement. This is it. This is it. This is the escalation point that people have talked about for hundreds of years, thousands of years. This is it, the escalation point. And from this point forward, we're going to see quite a few different things that are both disturbing, wondrous, right? And a time will come just by the heavens themselves, just by what will pass over our heads. Not one soul will ever doubt there's a God again. They're going to know that you know, the evolution just doesn't work the way they proposed it would. They're going to see it by their own eyes. So they will not mistake it. They're going to have to live in that environment and get ready for you know, when people see this red dust is going to begin to consume everything, right?
Yeah.
But let me give you this small piece of information about the red dust. It's going to put a bad taste in all of our mouths because we're going to breathe it. Right? And here's what it's comparable to. Just so if anybody does not understand it, all you have to do is take iodine, pour iodine in a teaspoon, put it under your nose and smell it for about 15 minutes. The sickness you get from that iodine just from the smell is what you'll have in your mouth. So it's going to be a very difficult time to deal with, right? But the Lord still has a promise over us. As the world evolves, as it changes, as it escalates, the Spirit will be strong with us for those of us who are truly seeking to abide in Him. That means we can't take the way of the world, Pascal. We can't. The violence within our flesh, it's going to be there. It's time for us to overcome it. It really is time for us to overcome it and take a step towards Christ before it's too late. Because it's almost like going to the gym. If nobody goes to the gym, they're not going to get stronger. And this is a good time to implement some things before people see anything of greatness and something that they really can't deny. Because things are really about to change, and they're actually about to turn very spiritual.
You know, the fact that you're saying this is it, meaning this is the culmination of things, the climax of the end. You see this events about to happen. It's going to change everything. And you know, last week you mentioned about the trains with the white cars on it. You know, we got emails from people who said they seen trains with white cars, like government cars, but they're sitting on tracks, but they're not moving. They're not moving where they're just sitting like on the side near a Walmart even. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, they're getting ready, Pascal. It's the same reason why people don't see things on their shelves. You asked if this was contrived, right? If this is a manufactured shortage. Think about it. Sure, we had some containers out to sea. That doesn't constitute the lack of food that we've had in the stores, right? You know, if you run the numbers, we have enough manufacturers within the U.S. to provide every single grocery store with ample amounts of food. China produces a lot of boxes and plastics, right? But so do we. We have a lot in inventory. We do. So what has really happened is pressure. All you have to do is put pressure on manufacturing facilities and throw a screwdriver in the engine of transportation. And what do you have? You have a problem with restocking the shelves, because not only do we have a food shortage, we have a shortage in just about everything made within the USA in the stores. Okay, well, China does not justify that. This problem out to sea doesn't justify that. We also have people that don't want to go back to work. And why? Because they got so used to getting free money. I understand that this COVID thing is out there, and some people are frightened. It does not justify all these people not working. You have jobs that used to pay $13 an hour. I know for a fact they're paying $28 right now. Who wouldn't take that job if they needed one? Right? In Florida, for crying out loud, you have unemployment in Florida. Why? That makes no sense. It makes no sense. They have a teacher shortage, right? They're trying to get anybody and everybody to come into the workforce, and people do not want to do it. They don't want to do it. I believe that's a combination of people got a taste that they can, rip off the government or get some free money or something like that. And they don't want to go back to work. They want the comfort. And it's so strange how people are seeking comfort when they really should work in the opposite direction. They really should be taking things a little bit more soberly. But it's also a telltale sign that the world is not going to take anything seriously until they die by it. Wow. All right. So the world's not coming forward with the answers. And I made that statement to say this. I am glad that you're having some of the folks that come on to explain to the folks what they believe will happen in the end days. Because, Pastor, there's no way that me, Gil Broussard, yourself, or anybody else could have all the information a person needs to walk through these days. It's going to be so much happening at once. And most of the subjects, 90% of what we're about to go through, no one has discussed. No one.
Are you more worried about 2022 or 2023?
22. I honestly, I can't even think about 23 right now.
Because of the things, because of what is going to happen in 2022.
Oh, yeah.
You can't even look out there. So you see 2022 being a very pivotal year for this, the effects of Planet X, and the effects of government's reaction to it coming in. Do you believe that they're reacting to what's coming in? Or are they reacting to prophecy because they know what the Bible says?
They're reacting to prophecy. You know what they believe? This is what they believe. And believe it or not, 1960, there was a declaration at the age of Aquarius, right? The door to Aquarius had come. From 1960 to this very time, they have things to prepare for. They're not going to fail to do that. And everything they wrote in the book has happened. Everything has happened. Now, the one thing that really gets me is no disrespect to anybody, but there was always coming a time when when law enforcement topside would be abandoned. In other words, the system would begin to break down, and they would help it break down. They would help people lose confidence in the system, right? And when people lost enough confidence in the system, they would alter the system. They're going to change it and introduce something else. We all know this as the beast system.
Right.
That's what we know it as. So we're certainly going to be in the shadow of the beast system. I know a lot of people believe that America is Mystery Babylon, but every time I read the Bible and it says Mystery Babylon, mystery means hidden. That means it's not obvious. It has to be a place that's not obviously corrupted.
Right.
And America's just not that way because we voice too much stuff. We are, just like kind of like a Sodom and Gomorrah with a few Christians stuck in it. But that's not us. But we do have a role. But what's going to happen is we have to go through a refinement process. And though, it's not, I may not be alive during that time, but, it's coming quick. Tomorrow's not promised to any of us, but those who would live in that time, they're going to be a very different breed of individual, very different breed. Just like some of the kids that are coming out now, they are either all the way bad or they are gifted beyond belief. Already, small children at the age of 1, severely gifted to know things they shouldn't know. They just should know this. 2-year-olds coming out, they know everything we know plus some, right? They're highly intuitive, but most of all, they're spiritual, and some of these kids have a deep respect for God. I've seen too many small children. Something I'm noticing, they don't like people saying choice words around them. They don't. No. They'll tell them in a heartbeat. Yeah. God's not pleased with that.
Well, their hearts are
how
pure.
How can a 1-year-old say that?
Their hearts are pure. You know?
Yeah, and you know what? But in my time, right? In my time, when kids were 1, it was just boogly boogly coming out of their mouth. They didn't know what these kids know now. Yeah. But going with that, Pastor Paul, we also have a breakdown. We have some very bad people that are no longer ashamed to show what they truly are on the inside.
Mike, there's a name that came to me today. A gentleman that I was talking with, who said his name. He said, you might want to check into Blackstone. Is there something there? I mean, is there? Look, earlier you said that it's like the governments are all getting ready, are building whatever they're doing to prepare for the arrival or prepare. For
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
And there's a name that's come up, Blackstone, and I don't know who this individual is, or if that's just a code name. Is there anything? Is this a code name, or is this something you've heard?
There's a twofold correlation to that name, right? One is kind of like some of the Secret Service names that the president had, right? Yeah. And it's kind of like that. But I've heard that in 2 different categories. Either way, what's significant to me is that it would be bought out at this time, right? In relation to some special individual on the face of the earth. And everywhere this individual goes, things are changing quick.
Right.
And this individual, it's not even a joke, because Putin, right? Putin really was going to change part of his direction, but it just never happened. Right before he left the Middle East, he was touched or influenced, and that was the end of that. And everything changed at that time. There's some other folks who were there's some new folks everybody's about to meet, right? It's going to be a bit of an upset, but everybody's got to meet these folks. And these folks, they're going to fool a lot of people. They're going to fool a lot of people. They speak the language of someone who has reverence for the Lord, right? But take my word for it. When a person does not voice the name Christ enough, it doesn't matter how many times they say God. God is a title, not a name. Christ, right. Jesus Christ is a name. These individuals will not use the name Jesus, but they will speak around everything and use the word God. And people are going to be fooled left and right. They're going to know what they're talking about. They're going to be very very educated as far as governments are concerned of how things should work and look like. But it's going to be a group of these people coming forward, right? And they are highly influential. They're not normal. Let's put it that way. They're just not normal. But ironically, everybody who gets around 2 of these individuals, the other ones I don't know, but 2 of these individuals, they start feeling positive. What is that? They start feeling good, complete, positive, right? That troubles me, because that should only come from the Holy Spirit through the Lord, not from a person. I'm one of those guys that if a person starts taking the place of what the Lord promised me, I got a problem with that. I have a big problem with that, because nothing Jesus promised me that would come through the Holy Spirit should ever come through a man, and nobody's taken his seat of authority in my life. And I hope that other people take the same stance, because it causes us not to slip when we do that. And we live in those days where some real dragons are coming right to the forefront.
Yep. You think that has the Antichrist let me ask this, has the New World Order or this global cabal, have they chosen someone that they want to be their leader? Has that already been done?
I honestly believe that something has come forward. I believe that something has come forward, right? Now, according to their own writings, when this individual comes forward, Pastor Paul, right?
Yep.
There will be, I think they said, an unscheduled eclipse. In other words, something when we shouldn't have an eclipse, we're going to have one. Also, there will be what did they say? Oh, I'm trying to remember. A small time, like a moment of calm for everybody out of the blue. Just a moment of calm. And what that means is, suppose we're going through all this turmoil, but then all of a sudden, for about 2 or 3 days, everybody starts turning nice. Nobody has complaints. Everybody feels differently inside. A real alteration of people, and then it goes back to normal. That was also written in their words that would happen through their whatever they do. Whatever they do. I do know. Now, that's what I read. What happens? So that's something you can watch for. What I do know is that people feel more secure with their own ideas, with their own plans, not with the Lord's, right? But with their own plans.
Right.
They feel very loyal, not with Christ, but with things of men. And these are things to watch out for. My loyalty should never be with flesh. I'm to die to it every day, not strengthen it every day. But this thing has power to strengthen flesh, to do the opposite of what the Lord has commanded us to do, causing people to live in sin, but smile about it and indeed prosper by it. So the challenges are coming, because that's going to be a very challenging thing to witness that.
Now, Mike, I said the word Blackstone, but actually the word I was given earlier today was Black Rock. Is there an individual by that name, or is this a code name, or is there someone?
I'll say before, the designation, right, is kind of like, from what I saw, there were 2 categories of this. One was just like a president's code name, right?
Yeah.
Just like a president's code name. But and the other one, it was used in a totally different fashion. But the one, now that's what I, peered into. What I know for a fact, Pastor Paul, is there is someone out there who controls the assets of everything right now.
Yes.
I mean,
now what you just said right there is exactly what I was told today. That there's an individual out there with $12.6 trillion of assets, but controls the assets of every major corporation. And when I'm talking from the Amazons to the SpaceX to the Facebooks to the what have you, and that everyone's really answering to one, and that this individual is the controller of all assets, and that it seems like, and you can see this on commercials. This individual told me this today, told me this name, and told me this, and said to ask anyone that's studying this, you'll find out. But he said the bottom line was this: you'll see commercials today. Used to be the commercials were to sell us the product, the consumer, but now it's like they're auditioning to somebody else to be allowed to continue to play. Is that why the shelves are going empty with certain brands of products that we got winners and losers here? Somebody's calling the shots.
There's a loyalty part, Paul. It's been called out of everybody, right? That loyalty, that subject of loyalty, you're going to find this everywhere. And I'll tell you this: those who are not loyal, they're going to be gone away. They're just going to go away. You know how many businesses have shut because they can't find employees?
I know.
How does a business shut because they can't find employees?
Heidi's got a theory on that. Heidi's saying to me, Paul, I'm serious. I just think people are just dying or disappearing. She said, I mean, is there something going on here? It don't seem like there's many people. You think that's right, Mike?
Oh, yeah, we have. Look, we had a lot of homeless people prior to the pandemic. What happened to them?
Where'd they go?
They were not housed. They were not housed. And listen, there are a lot of nefarious things that would be highly distasteful to talk about over the air like this. But I'll tell you this: there's some really ruthless folks out there. Right. And without Christ, these folks are everywhere. There's not a place you can go where they're not. There's not the only way, or the only reason a person won't be or can't be touched by them right now is because God will not permit that. This is still his earth. This is not their earth. This is his earth. Even Satan is given a fence line he can do his stuff on, but it can only go so far. When the Lord says no, that's enough for him. But Pastor Paul, really, it's really a time of a deeper, one of those deeper walks with the Lord. I mean, in truth, that all of our gifts that we have, we can utilize them, because I'm convinced that God has given all of us such. He's given us everything we need, but all too often, sometimes we don't harness it because we're so distracted by life itself. But I believe that these times, they also give an opportunity for a person to really slow down just a bit, and refocus some things. It's not all the world's going to have tragedy. That's not meant for us,
Right. That's right.
What the world endures and what they feel and what they see and what they perceive it's not meant for us to perceive it that way, right? No. We're the ones with power, by the way. We're the last stronghold, you could say, in regards to the enemy, because we're the only obstacle in his way to total absolute control.
Yeah, we're the last line of defense. And the beast kingdom in Revelation 13, folks, we're on the brink of the beast. We're literally, it's you can see it laying the tracks. Soon the train is coming. They're laying the tracks. Soon the train is coming. I think Mike has given us a ton of clues and things to look into and to study and to find out. But and so when you say you're more worried about 2022 than you are in 2023, I'm going to be asked that same question to the other guys like Marshall Masters and Gil Brazard and Steve Mendanoon. I think you guys all have a model, like a hurricane. When a hurricane's going, the weather guys draw the spaghetti models. I'm really interested in that webinar we're going to do, that summit that's coming up, folks, in January 28th, 29th. We're going to ask these guys if for them to give us their spaghetti model. When do they see the events of the storm, of the event, of the thing that Mike just said a minute ago, a mighty this thing he's saying that, look, this is about to happen. What is the timeline of that, Mike? And, you see it coming sooner rather than later? Do you see it being drawn out over a longer period of time, or does it have a shorter period of time? How is this finality or the effects of Planet X going to work, in your opinion?
Well, I can tell you this, Pastor Paul, from this day, it changed a few things for a lot. And I think that the escalations, as I said before, they're going to be highly visible. But I can tell you this, if the world is planning on something to happen in the next 5 years, you might want to look at the next 5 months or something like that.
When you say this day,
off guard.
When you say this day, is because of what you said when you first came on, when you said something happened today. Okay.
Yeah, the earth shifted. We had the axis of the earth physically shifted today, right? It started last night. It shifted today. It was such a shift that they had to do course corrections with just about everything orbiting in space of those craft that they could readjust. And more readjustments are bound to take place. You know what this means? If it continues, we're going to lose geolinks. We're going to start, we're going to have compromised situations. And one big thing I'm worried about, well, not worried about, but concerned about, and I do encourage people to just think about it, is whatever source of power they use, they need to think about power, lighting, especially at nighttime. They're lighting so they can have some remnants or some semblance of peace, but they need to really think about that.
Think about alternative ways. We may be going back to candlelight, folks, and lanterns. Think this through. They might be hard to find.
Yeah, we have problems. We really do have problems. But there is coming to a point where these conversations, most of it's going to come to pass very quickly, Pastor Paul, and there'll be there won't be people out there saying, well, I thought so-and-so was coming, because as they do come, the stresses will come also.
Right.
I'm just praying that people are truly prepared by way of the hearts for this. And also, here's a kink in the plans. Did you know that they're tearing down a lot of Jewish temples in America?
Yeah, what's that about?
Are being torn down. Do you know that?
Yes, and churches are being closed.
We have some severe changes, Pastor Paul.
Mike, let's pick this back up again next Thursday and prepare. I know you will, for your conversation for the Planet X summit we're going to have. I'm looking forward to see what you just let it all hang out, Mike. Let it all hang out. We got to know. Give us the spaghetti model. Give us yours. What's going on? We'll talk about it. I'll see you.